Okay, everyone, we got a special guest today, Austin. What's it like being the first three-time guest on the Well Rounded Grappler? Are you honored?
Like, yeah, man, it's a strange place, man. From meeting you, a few years ago at the ACJ National. No, I'm sorry, no, that was Greatest Camp. Greatest Camp is where we linked up, and so
Yeah,
the humbling experience of being on your podcast multiple times. Got to talk with some other great guys, on those roundtables and stuff, and it's a privilege and honor to be here. Truly, like, I really appreciate it.
yeah, definitely. People that are listening, check those out because both of them turned out really, really, really good. So, they end up being a little bit less than an hour. You got four black belts on there. Each podcast has, well over 100 years of, knowledge. So definitely check those out, Black Belt Roundtable 1 and 2. So I do want to do, an announcement drop for this because, and I talked with you a little bit about it, and we're still in the early planning stages, but I am looking to create a huge grassroots level grappling event. Camp, not event, so not a tournament, but a camp. And, I've been on the phone the last couple of days talking with a lot of people, a lot of black belts that I know. And I want it to be a really great um, North and South Carolina wide camp that people from all over the states are going to come out and enjoy, and it's going to be awesome. But so keep your ears open, everybody listening to this, and we're looking for fall 2026. So
Fantastic. That's great, dude. We need more of
yeah,
that. Greatest
we
Camp
do.
is awesome, but there's plenty of room for more camps, So we
Yeah,
would
yeah, yeah.
that'd be great, dude. Good on you.
I purposely am doing it, at a different time of the year too, because that is a great event. But and that's encompassing as well. But it's I really want it to be a little bit more well rounded. I know at the greatest camp they have a little bit of jiu-jitsu, a little bit of Brazilian jiu-jitsu, a little bit of stuff like that. But it's mostly judo, and I definitely am going to have a judo presence there. But I want to get some good Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belts in there, and working on at a Division One wrestler who's also a Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt as well that I want to get to come out. But yeah, it's going to be cool, man. I mean, either way, it's going to be great. I want it to be big, and we'll just kind of see. But I'm going to look into some event centers, and I want to do like two full mats. So I want to get a good amount of people there. I want it to be a big event. So
Like two full wrestling mats, the big old,
yeah,
that'd be
yep,
fantastic. Oh, that'd be so great.
yeah,
As soon as it
yeah,
is, let me know.
exactly.
I'm gonna make sure I get
Oh,
there.
well,
So
I will. Well, like I said, I'd like for you to present a session too. But I want to both have technique sessions, but then I also want to sprinkle in a couple other things. You know, maybe something along the lines of a PowerPoint presentation by a couple different people to talk about whatever. It could be marketing. I was thinking about doing a presentation on how to teach the younger kids, because I have a PE degree and worked with little kids most of my education career, and just make it all encompassing. And if you're a school owner, you're going to get a lot out of it. If you are an advanced black belt, you're going to get a lot out of it. If you're a brand new person that just started judo or jiu-jitsu, you're going to get a lot out of it. So I really want it to be an all-encompassing thing.
you know it. It's great you say that because if you remember from our roundtable, again, yeah, I'll second that. I'm not just biased because I was on it, but seriously, that roundtable discussion was awesome, and I wish we had another 2 to 3 hours, just do 4 hours of chit chat. But the uh the conversation of coach education, right? We talk about spread and grassroots judo and you know being willing to have a business and we should be paid versus not paid and how do we give back and all this kind of stuff. But a crucial concept, like you're talking about, is coach education. I mean, we kind of see some of it pop out, right? Like all the John Donaher system or the ecological CLA, constraints later approach, that kind of stuff. So we kind of got some buzzing going, but a true, and then even systems, right? Like Roddy Ferguson, cross grip system, which is super powerful, but like that's not really, that's touching it, but not really hitting teaching, right? Because you with your experience as an educator and really being like, hey, no, this is how we structure teaching. This is how we talk to different age groups, whether it's voice or presence or the actual system of setting up a program and so on and so forth. That is something that's missing. And even like, because I'm with the USJA, that's who I primarily follow right now. I follow other people or other organizations, excuse me, but even then they have a curriculum, whereas, hey, here's your check sheet, so to speak, at minimum for a belt. But that's just the belt. That doesn't talk about the teaching of the thing. And that's the thing that's missing. It's not just about curriculum. It's, hey, how do I most efficiently, maximum efficiency, right? How do I most efficiently instruct a group and do it intelligently and, correctly, promptly, clearly, so on and so forth. And what you bring to this community, we could talk to the cows come home about techniques and cool uchimatas and whatever else, right? But like getting to the dough of judo, the philosophy, the way, the fact that this is an academic art, akin to karate or some of these other systematic things, what your expertise is specifically is your ability to instruct clearly and present that information. And having yourself or others who have that expertise bring that to the mats and actually teach other instructors, hey, let me help you teach better. I'm not telling you to be an Olympian, but to actually be a better coach, an instructor, teacher, sensei, whatever. That is so huge, man. And, I'm thankful to have your friendship and know guys like you that want to bring that forward and talk to that. We need that. And for all the people listening, if you're a teacher and you know how to present that, I encourage you, make content, teach people how to teach. Like, cool, we know how to do judo, right? But that doesn't make us good teachers. There's plenty of people that could kick my butt, 6 ways to Sunday, but teaching a technique is different from just being able to win on the mat. So like, we need that. Yes.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, I want to bring, the strengths of individuals that come out, and I want the individuals, the presenters to, bring their best ideas, their best techniques, their best strategies, just whatever it might be. Like I said, I might figure out somebody to do a little bit of, marketing as well, because we've talked about this, especially in the judo realm, the judo area of, this encompassing, martial arts. Judo lacks in the marketing. And that's one thing that's going to take judo into the modern age and grow, right? Because, and I went into a lot of depth with Skylar Cummings. I'm not sure if you listened to that last interview with her or not, but we went into a lot of good stuff about the coaching, like you were saying. She talked about that as well, that it would be nice to have a coaching education out there for judo specifically. And then also, marketing, right? Like, if you want to apply to today's audience, and it doesn't even have to be with young people. I mean, it could be the, people our age, 30s, 40s, maybe into the 50s as well, right? We figure out about businesses by seeing things related to them online, right? Or we pass by a business and, at times, I would say probably maybe the majority of the times, even if I can say that, we look at a business like a restaurant. I say, I wonder if I should eat there. Pull up my phone. Okay. Jim's Rib House or whatever. Oh, cool, man. Like, look at all these great reviews. Look at this nice website. Look at, look at all these good comments. This is a place, right? Let's go there and eat. Or another scenario, we go by Jim's Rib Shack or whatever the heck I said. I can't remember what I called it, but Jim's Ribs, and we pulled up on the phone. There's no website at all. Like, there's no listing. Okay, there's a Facebook page, and I pull it up, and it's just the logo. No reviews, no nothing, no pictures. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm probably not going to go there. That's how people are with martial arts schools as well, right? Like people, parents especially want to check out a website. They want to see, a clean environment. They want to see stuff that's modern. They want to see something that people are putting investment into, and they could see that they care about their business. They're putting money into making it clean, putting money into creating a nice website, nice uniforms, clean professional pictures, like all this stuff. That's how businesses run these days. I mean, yeah, there are some instances to where you have businesses that run almost all like purely off of word of mouth. Like my brother-in-law, he has a landscaping business and he doesn't advertise at all, but he's had so much word of mouth over the last decade that now,
Mhm.
he has full-time employees and, he's got work all year round. But that's kind of a diamond in the rough, right? The modern businesses need to be electronically available to people.
Yes. Yes. You know, and you know me, right? I'm a content creator. I know you're in the content too, and we're doing this thing, the podcasting, the discussions, the short film and whatnot. But
I
man,
think your daughter wants
it,
you.
hey, you guys go upstairs, play in the room, and shut the door, please. Okay. Apparently, my son kicked her for something, and it's like, hey,
No,
we're
all
not doing
good.
this.
It's all
They're
good.
always back and forth. It's great, but
We
or
know.
not great. You know what I mean? They're kids.
It's all good.
But yes, the on the marketing and the business side, again, that business education from, hey, like, how do I set prices? How do I do market research? How do I determine, what how much space can I lease? Because this is the thing that I was really my background is I'm a government contract specialist, right? As you know, I write government contracts. I look at service contracts, major supplies, defense contractors, all that kind of stuff. I get in the nitty gritty of like how they price their proposals and so on and so forth. And I reverse engineer this. I'm like, well, hold on a second. They are pricing things in a specific fashion for a purpose. Why haven't I applied this to a judo? Right? Because it's like, we charge 130 a month, 6 days a week, the different classes, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But when you really sit down and think about it, I'm like, wait, is this the proper amount to charge to actually break even to cover, because like, for example, by fire code, we can technically only fit 26 people into that facility at one time, right? There's obviously
Oh,
some
wow.
transientness and stuff that goes into play, but you could probably push that to 30, but like 26, 27 people is what we're by code allowed. And it's like, okay, well, hypothetically speaking, not even including like the parents, if I just think about students, if I had, with myself included, 25 other bodies on this mat. One, is that enough space to safely, train all these people in judo specifically? Jiu-jitsu is a little bit different because, you can cram more people in, but for judo,
Mm-hmm.
is that enough space? And then space for, dollar per square foot, right? So, from breaking down that math and being like, okay, $130 at fully burden rate for an individual, not including any discounts or family plans, right? And then, times the number of bodies, like, does that cover my overhead? Now, obviously, we have some fluctuation with that, right? Because it's like, okay, realistically, you could double those numbers. Let's say it's 50 people that are paying. And because, there's going to be some transients. Some people train, twice a week or whatever. So it's like, okay, um, with that stated, does that cover? But that type of math, that type of mathematical entrepreneurial business thought of like, hey, is this the right facility? Because maybe you're paying $2,500 a month for a 2,100 square foot place, but in that square footage, you only have 1,000 square foot mat. Is that 1,000 square foot mat enough for your population? How much or not mortgage, how much rent can you actually afford for your business, right? So, breaking that down, because realistically it's like, okay, maybe only 1,000 square foot mat isn't enough. Maybe you really do need a 2,000 square foot mat, and can you generate the funding for that? Not to mention now we get into, hey, I actually got to fill these mats, right? Because I have to pay for my overhead and whatever loans or whatever else I may or may not be using.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an interesting conversation, as well as then we get to the advertising, right? Because it's like, well, hey, but dude, I don't have a massive marketing budget. I can't hire a group, blah, 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 blah. Okay, fine. So how do we talk about free resources compared to paid resources, pros and
Oh, yeah.
cons, so on and so forth? And then even with content creation, right? It's And we talk about this all the time, right? And you obviously, you see all the comments on your stuff and comments on my stuff and the naysayers and whatnot. But the reality is we're growing, right? We are bona fide small content creators. And the amount of people that have commented positively far outweighs the negative, as well as the amount of private messages I get, like, oh, hey, I have a question about, I don't know, Sasai Suri Komiyashi. Or, hey, I have a question on this or that technique. And even, hey, can I come check out your gym? I'm traveling through and I'll pay a drop-in fee. Those
Mm-hmm.
things matter, right? A $20 here and
Nice.
there, matters, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have a kid he's not a kid, he's a man, but a man in Malaysia that I'm mentoring right now, trained at a judo gym in Malaysia. He's done
Mm-hmm.
some
Mm-hmm.
competitions. He does regular randori, great guy. But, he reached out to me because of TikTok and he's like, I, I like that Harai Goshi video. I have some more questions. So, which,
Uh-huh.
you get enough people like that. Now we're talking, okay, business expansion. Like, all right, what if I offered a paid course? Do I have the interest to offer another thing for money, right? These courses. And if you just throw it out there, I mean, sure, you can just throw it out there. But the cool thing about content creation is it's a free resource. You just got to put in the time, the effort, energy to do so. And you really don't, I mean, who doesn't have a smartphone today, right? We're not talking you
Right.
need, 4K, 120, whatever, right? Like you just need something, right? And to record it with that, and this is what I started with. That's it. Just a smartphone with the phone mic, and most of my content is created just from this, right? I barely even use the microphone because of reverb and all that other nerdy stuff that's part of the course, right? But not being afraid to post yourself, because I know I don't have the best Uchimata in the world. Can I teach you how to do it? Yes. Can I give you another perspective to help somebody? Yes. And that's the cool part is people can look at you and look at me and look at Dr. Ferguson and look at all sorts of Travis Stevens and whoever, right? And be like, okay, let me pick these things, and they find their judo, right? And that's the purpose, is how do we give back? But coming back to the business front, those every single video that you post, one, we're in a social media market of interest, not necessarily who you follow. It's an interest market. So videos that pop up are based upon your interest, right? And if they're interested in that and they see that and they like it, well, interact in the comment section. Maybe they send you direct messages. And that's a funnel, right? We talk about sales funnels where it's like, okay, I do something to capture the attention. Now it's up to me to close that lead, right? Where it's like, oh, hey, I just had a guy email me yesterday, day before yesterday, who was like, hey, I'm a soldier near Fort Bragg. Because everyone's listening, I'm near Fort Bragg, North Carolina. I live in Sanford, North Carolina. I teach in Fayetteville and in Sanford. And then I have a private group for military people on Fort Bragg. And he hit me up. He's like, hey, man, like, service member, I'm at Fort Bragg. I'm looking for a place to train. Like, there's not a ton of judo out here. What's up? And I'm like, hey, I train these 2 locations. Plus, we got this group. If you want more, send me a number. I'll add to our private chat. Like, and then you guys can continue training on base for the things that you need for a militaristic perspective, let alone just good judo, right? Because judo, as we know, good grappling is good grappling, good play anywhere. But leaning into teaching someone how to make content, because is it super simple and relatively straightforward? Yes. Is there an art to it to make it more advanced? Absolutely. But out of all the forms of advertising, in Austin's humble opinion, it's so much easier for anyone to record their 3-minute, 1 minute, 30-second, whatever clip of whatever their niche is and posting that. With me, I'm just like, hey, people, post the content, because there's a million YouTube videos on how to record videos. And,
Yeah.
again,
Right.
I'm a Apple nerd. I got the iPhone, I got the AirPods, whatever, right? That's my thing. I'll admit, right? But the system works, and I
Yeah.
don't need a lot of extemporaneous devices. So, anyways, I'll
Mm-hmm.
get off my high horse on that. But like, post the content, people. Build your business. Post the content. It's
Yeah.
the fastest way, uh, for the cheapest dollar amount to grow. And then pay attention to these podcasts, because they'll give you the sauce on how to do more from a whole
Mm-hmm.
bunch of people that are successful. So there's that.
Do you listen to Gary V?
I love Gary Vee. Oh my
That's what.
God, I love Gary Vee.
Yep, that's it, because he talks about interest media a lot. So I figured that was maybe where you might have heard that, but it's correct. It's definitely interest media. Um, you know, me back to when I was a judo player in college. I got to college, and this was 2000 like 5. No, 5. Yeah, I went to college from '05 to '08. So I get to college and doing judo, and then whatever, like within a short amount of time, a week, a month, whatever it is, run into people talking, "Hey, what's your Facebook account?" And I'm like, what are you talking about? What
Yeah.
is that? And it's like, oh, it's just this thing, and this is how college people kind of like communicate with each other, and you could post pictures, and it's just like, it wasn't called social media, it was just Facebook. And at that time it was for colleges only. One of the drop down menus was, what college do you go to? And it's changed to so much from then, because there wasn't even a wall. You had
Yeah.
to, or not a wall, a news feed. What's the main menu of Facebook? What is that? The news feed, the wall, I don't, whatever it's called.
It's changed so much. I don't even know now,
Anyways,
man.
but
I remember
anyways, it was
MySpace.
just,
You know what I mean?
it opens up to your profile, and you have to, if you want to find somebody specifically, you have to put what college they're from, and then you had to, type in their name correctly. It was one of those things to where if you put Sarah with no H at the end, and it's Sarah with an H at the end, she's not going to pop up. So,
Yeah.
and then you had to basically just find people and link up that way. There wasn't like a news feed and a wall like there is today. But anyway, yeah, but that's, it's social media is, it's more interest media now. And I mean, it's Facebook, man. I'm telling you, it's like now it's like, it's almost like all ads all the time. It's like, yeah, I see like,
Yeah.
the people that I'm friends with, like their story will pop up, or their pictures from vacation will pop up. But then it's like, John's lawn service, and that, come to Joe's butcher shop, or come do this, come do that. It's almost like it's gotten to, the commercials like TV once was, right? Now it's like the
Yeah.
opposite, right? Netflix don't have any commercials. It's like you just pay the
Yeah.
subscription, you don't got to deal with it. But yeah, so there's there's so many avenues that we could go by or go down. I know one thing, and I know that you're a big fan of this, and you keep posting about it, and it's I probably is one of your new favorite videos is your video of the Kodokan black belt that you have, and
Yeah.
it kind of talks about the cultural differences between Japan and maybe the rest of the world, or the United States specifically, for judo. And it's a cool video, and it kind of shows how the cultures are different, and it also shows kind of like what the perception of judo is in Japan and what our perception is in the United States. So, what were some of the cool things that you really like about that video, and what why do you keep posting it? Why do you like it so much?
Yeah. So, first and foremost, judo is for everyone, right? Unlike, we can argue all martial arts, wrestling, taekwondo, xiao, kung fu, whatever. All martial arts are for everybody. Anybody can participate, right? But the thing that's unique about judo, the reason why judo is the most revolutionary martial art in the world, right? It's not the oldest, it's not necessarily even the flashiest, but it is the most revolutionary. It's because of the entire, as we know, the system, but the dough, right? Dr. Roddy Ferguson shared an interesting clip on Instagram that, you know, it started off, oh, BJJ is just judo and that thing, but it's not that part. It was the ending that really had me locked in and talking about, hey, the do of judo, going from jujitsu to judo, and what does do mean, and the philosophy and the things that go behind it, right? And I'm like, man, I feel like as judoka, we have lost the essence of do. Like, what does that mean? And that's where we grow, right? Because sure, if you just want to get better at techniques and just want to maul somebody, like, just go do wrestling. Why, or do BJJ, right? Arguably the most accessible thing in the Western Hemisphere right now is BJJ. So if you just want to roll and go through that process, cool. But if you want to dig deeper, if you want to really analyze yourself, you want to be a better teacher, and you want to understand cultural significance and how people interact, and all this kind of stuff. I can go on so many paths on that. But, and what do I mean by we lost sight? In Western society, right? We've kind of, in America especially, we love competing, right? Always have. Even when Japanese jiu-jitsu was first introduced via judo to America, back when Teddy Roosevelt was still around, right? Like, there was the wrestling match on the White House lawn, right? It was like, hey, who can beat who? That's always kind of been the essence. But Teddy Roosevelt's so significant, something to the extent, and I might butcher the quote, and I'm sure somebody will correct me, of, oh, hey, judo is superior to our wrestling in every way. But he wasn't talking about the ability to defeat somebody in mutual combat. It was that do behind it. And what does that mean? It's like, okay, for the fact that a regular guy can delve deep in this thing and then share this disciplined, self-building, community-building thing with multiple other people and influence their, from childhood to adulthood, influence their life for the better, right? Like, that's the thing. And that's not done necessarily specifically through fighting, right? Because don't get me wrong, we know that, you want to build confidence. Hey, the ability to do the great yeet on somebody is a confidence tool for sure. But, again, there's two founding principles, right? The maximum efficiency and the mutual welfare and benefit. And the attitude of doing things efficiently, not muscling through things, not smashing somebody, letting go of that aggressive side to an extent, or knowing when to apply an aggression. Because strength is a technique, right? Knowing when to apply strength and aggression as opposed to just smashing everything, right? Because we all get older, the 20s fade, the 30s fade, so on and so forth. It's like, okay, well, how do I, because, it's hard to wrestle beyond your 20s, right? By the time you're in your 30s, if you wrestle competitive, you beat up. It's just the nature of what it is. So it's like, or the nature, the nature of what it is. So being able to do judo in perpetuity is a big deal. And we lose sight of that because it's like, okay, and right now, or so it seems writ large, across the world, not just in America, but France, Great Britain, Italy, those are kind of the three big targets that people kind of yell at me from. Anywhere in Europe, and they're like, well, oh, your throw isn't powerful, oh, it sucks, or whatever. And it's like, well, maybe you're right. Maybe you're right, and probably are, right? I'm not an Olympian. I wasn't highly competitive at a great level. But does that make the judo bad? Because if we peel that back, besides the capability of subduing an opponent, have you seen how my kids' GPAs have gone up? Have you heard the comments from parents about, wow, my child is more confident and they're acting better at home and they know how to deal with bullying better and all these type of things, right? Just from the understanding of judo and the tenets that it, underlays. And then adults, right? Like, oh, wow, I had a great conversation with one of my students, Aaron, you met him before, but who's finishing law school. And, he's also a really strong Christian, right? And he's like, hey, like, this is a martial art that can, the morality of it falls in line with my faith. But it's not unique just to Christianity. Like, anybody, right? I mean, you can be Muslim, you can be Buddhist, you can be Hindu. It doesn't matter. Like, this thing falls in line with the moral tenets. And that's significant because you can have moral dilemmas with many other martial arts, right? But like, and, and some people get caught up and they're like, oh, I don't want to look at the religious philosophy of, some of the Asiatic martial arts or whatever, but that's not the qualm in judo. That's not a thing, right? Because it's not about religion. It's not about any other stuff, right? It's about the bettering of oneself in your community. So in a more practical sense, right, besides just ranting, it's like, okay, well, what does that look like? Well, one, if people want to compete, you provide that, right? Because Shiai, Randori, competing in free rolling is a thing because it's still a martial art, right? We have to be in touch with the martial component. I'm not knocking that at all. I get eaten and I eat all the time. It's part of the deal. I throw people, I throw all the time. That's part of the deal. But what about the people that don't maybe have an older person who doesn't want to Randori? Or maybe you just have the middle-aged mom and dad who's like, hey, like, I want to learn this and you do it statically and it's fun. And I can check the box and demo, but like, I'm not trying to fight, man. This is a hobby. Well, it provides them a way to improve themselves and improve this technique and this understanding and not have to worry about getting beat up, right? They have that avenue. And we're not even talking about just like kata, right? We're just talking about, hey, learning Taitoshi, demonstrating Taitoshi, and be like, yeah, I know something cool, pat on the back type of thing. That's important. We have lost that because we've put so much value on the accolades of competitive grappling that we've completely lost sight of the power of the do of judo, from perfecting oneself, giving back to community, and how do we empower people in a diverse mindset versus like, hey man, you suck at fighting, like you never deserve a shodan. So going back to like the Japanese mindset, right? Like, talking to his Instagram is Base Lou. He's awesome. He's a Marine out in Japan right now, or Okinawa specifically. And he's talking about him training at the Kodokan or on Okinawa or wherever else he goes. And he's like, man, like, it's not a check the box on techniques. Like, yeah, we randori. That's every day, single day, day one white belt to whatever level black belt, regardless of age, you still randori. But it was never about winning, right? You're trying to do good judo. You're trying to do perfect throws, so on and so forth. Right now, personally, I don't care about the perfect throw, right? Especially from my competitors. I'm like, hey, can you throw? And that's my personal thing, but there's room for that. Like, that's the beauty of it. That's okay. It's acceptable, right? But to progress in the black belts, right, it's like, can you get better at that throw? And you refine one or two throws, or you can learn all 67 and be able to demonstrate them, and then you can do it in kata. And like, him talking about that, where he's like, hey, his sensei knows all these things, he's giving details and all these different techniques. And he's like, the sensei is like almost in his 70s or whatever. And he's like, hey, he can never say that he has cleanly defeated his sensei with judo. Could he overpower him? Of course. He's a gun-ho Marine. He's super strong. I ran over with him a bit. He's super strong. When he grabs you, regardless of the technical side of it, he's strong, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the
Yeah.
ability to overcome somebody by force is a thing. But the the taking care of your partner and not doing that, like, that's a thing. And I feel like we as a culture have kind of lost that. There's a good video a while ago with Shone Ono beating the snot out of some other Japanese guys at the Kodokan. Now, I don't understand. I'll deal with him in a second. I don't understand what the background was for that. Maybe it was justified, but I look at that and I'm like, hey, that's not judo, right? You beating up that guy isn't judo. Even if you had a good reason to, you doing it wasn't necessarily right. It's not about demolishing your partner, right? Using a good, clean technique and then maybe picking it back up and educating him on how you did it. So if that's good judo, that's the building. I feel like we have lost that writ large in America. However, the American culture values, glorifies that thing of, oh, hey, you can win, therefore you are better. And that goes against the tenet. That shouldn't be, in my opinion, what the focus is. And I'm not saying it's bad to be able to win, but once we begin focusing on your ability to win, that's where we lost sight of judo. That's kind of where BJJ comes into play, right? Like BJJ, you get promoted off of your ability to win on the mat. Oh, you want your blue belt? Like, you need to learn the technique. So you want to go to purple belt? You should have some that you're tapping people out with. No, you want to go to brown belt? Oh, we know your game. You're crushing people. You want to go to black belt? Well, now you have no holes in your game. You're just whooping, right? A black belt should just ball up, blue belt, purple belt, whatever, right? And that's fine. Again, jitsu, art, right? The technical proficiency, understanding how to subdue someone in this technical fashion is the jitsu. But it doesn't take the do. As Dr. Ferguson said, he was like, hey, like, the do of judo was what makes it eternal. If we just worried about techniques and the technical submission of somebody, that's jitsu. That's cool. But if you want to go beyond, we need the do. And that's kind of my big kick. And then we get into what makes a black belt. But that right now, I've really been sitting with that, like, what is the do of judo? What does this mean? And how do I live, breathe, teach this so that it doesn't die? Because it's important. It's very important.
And to piggyback off of that, so it's interesting because I've gotten away from the competitive aspect of judo. Now, am I teaching realistic techniques that work? Yes. At least in my opinion, yes. Stuff that I've seen that's effective. But then we also do things that are more of an aid. And just like I was telling my students last night, because we were doing Kochigari and kind of the version to where you step forward, step back, step forward, step back, turn, catch the foot, right? To where you're having a 100% willing partner that is just guiding, right? Being it's not getting. It's not a word, guided. Getting will be. I don't know. Anyway, guided on the dance, right? I'm moving. I'm moving. I'm moving. I turn. I catch the foot, right? And some of the students, I could tell are like, well, why are they doing this? They didn't say that to me, but and I'm like, right, this, you're going to have a couple different sides of judo. You're going to have one to where you have a 100% non-resistant partner that is a good uke, right? And we can go into a discussion about what's a good uke, right? It's not a limp noodle, but it's not, stiff like a statue.
Yeah.
It's like it's moving correctly, but being very cooperative, right? So you have that side of judo to where you have to be able to feel what it's like to do the technique or throw the technique, or in this case, catch the foot, guide the upper body with your hands. And then when you do it, and you're like, oh, there it was. It felt easy. I caught the foot. My timing was good, right? But just like I told my students, now in a live situation, it's not going to be exactly like that. It's, yes, I can move somebody, and yes, I can catch the foot in a somewhat similar fashion, but it's not going to be this dance, this waltz, kind of like what we do. But that's the important part of judo, and that goes into more the recreational side, right? Just being able to understand how to throw somebody and just teaching your body how to manipulate other people's balance, manipulate their center of gravity, and be able to throw them with the least amount of effort as possible, right? And I tell people all the time that if you throw somebody and it felt easy, that means you did it correctly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. 100%.
And
Sorry, go ahead.
And it's interesting because, and I say this all the time, that I came through the system 100% different than the way that I teach, because every place that I went to was, and just like the majority of judo academies, even in the world, because I brought this up to Julian Brillard, the judo nomad, which I've had on the podcast. Yeah. He's traveling the world and teaching judo for free. Been to like 50 countries already. And I said, I teach kind of like, old school judo, and, I do stuff that's outside the competition realm. Out of all the places you've been, is that unique? And he said 99 times out of 100, the judo dojos are teaching to the current rule set, talking about tournaments, sending people to tournaments, and just, go in that direction. So that, that's a whole different approach too, but, I think it's important. And I honestly feel that the future of judo, and maybe even grappling as a whole, is to try to create a little bit of cohesiveness between, judo, jiu-jitsu, sambo, wrestling, sanjiao, whatever, right? Folk style wrestling, freestyle wrestling, to where, it takes information from each art, right? Like I talk about this too, like, if I'm in a judo class or a jiu-jitsu class or whatever, and I'm going to teach a double leg, I'm going to teach it like I would teach it in a wrestling environment, but I would change a little bit with my neck position and things like that. But I would teach it more like wrestling, because wrestling is better at leg techniques than any other art, right? If I'm going to show a submission technique, I start to pluck things that I've learned from jiu-jitsu, because jiu-jitsu has some of the best, finishes and submissions in the world, right? But then judo has the best throws, the best grip fighting, the best movement. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff, But I think that we have to start learning from each other and not be limited by, okay, I'm teaching judo and I learned a single leg this way in judo and it's practiced this way in judo, but wrestling does it better. So why not sprinkle in some wrestling? I think that that's the way that it needs to be, and that's the way that's going to be evolving and going forward. I mean, even when you look at judo specifically, whenever these Eastern Bloc European countries started to, win gold in the Olympics and started to, basically give Japan a run for their money, like people coming from Georgia, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Russia, they do judo way differently. They do judo that has a much more freestyle wrestling or regional wrestling styles, and it changed judo. Or like a Mongolia too. Mongolian judo
Mm-hmm.
is unique, and it's that they've adapted judo, and that's changed judo. So it's like we have to keep evolving like that, and we have to keep sprinkling in different techniques that are borrowed from other martial arts in order to improve judo and take it to the future.
The the do is what keeps judo enduring. The jitsu is what keeps it enticing. So it's interesting because, like, I mean, you're exactly right, man. You have some of the hardcore traditionalists, typically older judoka, who are like, no, this is how Dayashi Harai is done. If you do it any other way, you're wrong. And it's like, well, pause. How many times in a full resistance environment has somebody hit that throw in that specific way with that specific? So we talk about the uke, right? Well, okay, the uke's job is to position himself in a way to give you the proper resistance to learn the technique, right? And that positioning can change. If we talk about a bent over posture or an upright posture, or if you're kind of in the kin side by side position or whatever, right? Like, that's their job, to give you the proper resistance to learn a technique. And then we get into like, okay, well, what about variations of technique? Because there's a million different ways to do a specific technique, up until the point where it becomes another technique, which is that gets in the nuances of judo, right? Where it's like, well, that Dayashi actually was okuri.
Right.
Sure, maybe, okay, fine, whatever, right? Like,
Yeah,
or,
right.
or that wasn't Sasai, that was Harai Surikomiyashi. And
Yeah.
sure, cool, we can argue about that to the cows come home.
Right. Or he's
Yeah,
a
exactly,
Garuma.
right? Like, we can have those conversations, whatever.
So close to each
Exactly.
other.
But going back to what you talked about, the Japanese mindset, right? Talking to my buddy Daniel, who's over there, based Lou, his Instagram handle. But he was talking about, like, okay, they have the same traditional warm up with their rituals and whatnot, and they have the technique that they go over. They cover that technique, and then it's randori time, right? And then, if you want to, if you're like, because randori just means like free practice, right? So if you're working again, uchimata, right? It's like, okay, hey, sensei, show me uchimata. Okay, they show you and they throw you and they laugh at you and they get back up and you refine it. But they're like, hey, actually, if you want to know how to apply this, go talk to that guy, right? So then they go over to the other side of the mat and they talk to that guy. And he's like, okay, now talk to this guy. And each of them has a way they do their uchimata that is different from the traditional Kodokan demonstration, because that is just performative, right? Nagano kata uchimata is a performative way to show that you have a basic, fundamental, general understanding of the throw. It is not the way, right? It is a way to do uchimata to demonstrate that you understand it. But if we're talking rule sets, right? So again, jutsu, the art side of it that we haven't lost, it's part of the art that is judo. It's like, okay, can I do uchimata with a regular high lapel? Can I do it with low lapel? Can I behind the neck? Can I, grab a Georgian A, Georgian B from the belt, whatever, right? It's like, okay. Or even, like the Koreans, they have phenomenal one-handed, techniques and or double hand on one lapel, reverse sails, so on and so forth. Like, okay, well, you can't tell me that reverse seyanagi isn't still seyanagi. It's not the way you would demonstrate it for, like Nagano kata. but it's absolutely still Seoinage. And guess what? It wins. So is it wrong? No, right? Then we get into the rule set, right? As you said, there's nothing wrong with training judo to win in a specific rule set. But judo was never meant for one specific rule set. Good, we say it all the time, like your podcast, the Well Rounded Grappler. Good grappling is good grappling, and it transcends all styles, right? If I have good judo, my good judo should apply in any single grappling-based rule set that I jump into. MMA, jiu-jitsu, sambo, wrestling. It doesn't matter, right? It should, the fundamentals are fundamentals, the principles are principles, they should work. I tell people all the time, right? Like, especially with, give me 1 second. My son got a new lightsaber, so he likes to open the door and run around. I'm like, go, go, go. We watched the original 6 Star Wars movies, and he's so hooked. It's awesome, but neither here nor there. But back to the point.
That's what you were saying.
It should apply no matter what, right? So if I'm trying to do Uchimata in one way, and fine, it's been working decently in IJF-based judo, but it doesn't work in the Kosen rule set, or I can't do it as well in sambo or jiu-jitsu, because especially in jiu-jitsu, they talk about like the bad wrestling posture where they're low and they're bent over, and maybe this is not a guard puller, right? It's kind of low and bent over, but he doesn't have the good straight back for like a good wrestling posture. But it's still like you're not able to hit the Uchimata correctly because the way they keep angling their body. Well, it's like, okay, maybe your Uchimata, the way you know it, isn't the way it works here. You need to learn how to adapt it for that. And do you understand how to do that on the fly? Something, good buddy of mine, Ben, you met him. It's like jiu-jitsu and chess. It's problem solving in real time. How do I adapt this technique in real time to work? And do I understand the foundations and principles for this to work? As well as have I had enough repetition in varying positions to do this? And the right stimulus, right? So also, something I think of, every single judo throw is a solution to an angular problem, right? So Uchimata works at a certain degree of entry and exit, right? A 30 degree, 90 degree, whatever window in a certain quadrant. Well, if you're on the opposite side of the body, like you have to either reposition yourself and or use a different technique. Taitoshi works in a specific way, right? It is, and your uke, okay, gives you that positioning, or you move them and they're in a position, or they move and they're in a position where you're like, oh, okay, I can throw with this throw now. The beauty of learning the different techniques is because if you know other techniques and you experiment them within randori, when it comes to shiai or just a more aggressive randori, you can now apply that, right? Because maybe you know how to do Ippon Seoinage, but you're not very good at it, right? But you got a good Taitoshi. They're both hand techniques, right? It's like, okay, the Ippon Seoinage solves a similar but different problem set that Taitoshi solves. So it's like, okay, if I understand these principles, if I recognize I can't do Ippon Seoinage, but I can hit tile right now, or I can step in for an Osoto, which is a different thing, right? It's like you need to understand the positional awareness and how to apply that. That's how, like, one of the ways I try to teach it is I'm like, hey, don't think of this as learning the technique for the technique's sake. I mean, if you want to, that's cool, that's fine. That is a way to progress. But like, if you want to talk about the applying the technique, it's like, okay, what is the thing I'm looking for? If I have that specific stimulus, because usually every single throw is grounded in some specific stimulus. I'm like, okay, now I have a solution. It's one, what's the stimulus? And then two, what's the angle? And if I have that, now I have 1 to 3 probably bona fide throws I can use for that. There is a time to hit a double leg in wrestling, right? If they're really low and their hips are really far back, maybe trying to shoot for that isn't good because they're just going to sprawl out on you, right? But they're a little bit more upright and you have a better angle. You can get to that good outside position, get that good head side position, dump them. And there's variations of double leg, right? Boom, they're down, you get your pin, whatever, right? Congratulations, fall. But like, there's a means for that. Sometimes maybe the double leg isn't good. Maybe a snap down would be a much more efficient means to get them to the mat so we can spin behind a good 2 points with a takedown, right? Just like in judo, it's like, okay, let's apply like the Kosen rule set where we're allowed to grab their legs as opposed to the IJF rule set where we can't, in the truest sense of the grabbing their legs. It's like, okay, well, maybe they're upright and they're really strong, they're really upright, and their hand fighting is amazing. I just can't beat these hands, but they're not necessarily compromising my posture. maybe now I can enter in for a good, more wrestling style double leg, which is still Marote Gari in judo. No matter how we do it, it's still Marote Gari.
Mm-hmm.
And you hit it, and they're like, "Whoa, what happened?" Because they've been so isolated in this other rule set, and you're like, "All I got to do is keep them from being able to play
Yeah.
this game. I'm going to play this game," and that's all still good judo. So escaping this locked mechanism of IJF and exploring the techniques for what they are, um, and digging into the art side, right? Like we need more of that. And as you said, I agree with you. The well-roundedness, I think in the Western Hemisphere, are doing a much better job of that because you have BJJ guys that are like, "Hey, I like this takedown, this throw, whatever. I want to be able to use it." But
Mm-hmm.
because of the dynamic
Yeah.
nature and the rules of like jujitsu, they're forced to apply these techniques in ways that like traditional judoka wouldn't think about because I mean, the rules of judo are like, nope, you're stalling too much, you're being too passive. Oh, that's not the spirit of judo. Fine, cool. That's IJF rules. But what about literally everything else? What about in MMA where like, hey, I don't care if you're not grip fighting with me. Like, what if I just grab you? Then what? Like how do we deal with
Yeah.
that, right?
Right. Well, the thing that happened to me, and I guarantee that it happens to the majority of people that really go into one of the arts specifically, right? And I always refer to judo, jiu-jitsu, and wrestling as kind of the big three, right? I mean, yes, there's sambo and there's other variation, catch as catch can, Greco, I mean, just whatever, right? But I always refer to those as kind of the big three. So I think it's important that if I were to take a judo player and they could be a green belt, a brown belt in judo, and if I put them against a junior varsity wrestler that has very limited experience, I want that judo player to not be so absolutely shocked and easily taken down by this JV wrestler because they have just a couple months of experience attacking legs and the judo player has none. So it's shocking, right? And that's kind of what happened to me in a way, right? I did judo
Mhm.
predominantly. I started coaching wrestling later, but man, like when somebody grabbed my leg, I just didn't know what to do. It's like so I would get taken down all the time, right? And also I don't have a jacket to grab onto, so I wasn't familiar with the no gi type of approach, right? Same as if you take a wrestler and you put a jacket on them, it really surprises them, right? So I want to, encompass something like that, right? Or my introduction to jujitsu, man. Like I got submitted. I'm like a brown belt in judo, and I do jujitsu for the first time, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and I am getting tapped out left and right by
Mhm.
white belts that have just been doing it
Yeah.
6 months because I fall into the rule set of jujitsu, right? Um, or a jiu-jitsu player, right? That is, I mean, I face, brown and black belts in jiu-jitsu and they want to go on the feet with me. And it's like, they haven't spent time there, right? Like some of my judo players that have been practicing judo for 6 months, they can take down most of the jiu-jitsu players that they face at will in just 6 months. So it's not um, it's not saying that anybody is better than anybody else. It's just they don't have the
Yes.
exposure, and I think that well-rounded approach is kind of the way to go, right? Because I'm at the point now to where some of my students are asking about competition, and they say, well, should we enter a judo competition? Should we enter a jiu-jitsu competition? And I'm like, to be honest, the way that I'm preparing you, you would be able to go into one or the other, and in a novice division, a beginner division, I think you'll do fine at either one, right? And some places can't say that, right? Like you take the average judo club and put them in a jiu-jitsu tournament and yeah, they're going to get the takedown guaranteed, but after that, it's like they're probably going to get submitted, right? Or you take the average jiu-jitsu guy and put him in a judo tournament, they're going to get freaking slammed, and they're probably going to lose unless they get to the ground and then they work within that time frame of a submission, right? So it's like you should be able to take somebody and pluck them out of one martial art and put them in a novice level. I'm not
Yeah.
saying advanced. I'm saying a novice level tournament or division or bracket, and they should do okay, right? Like they should have enough comfort to where they know what guard is, or they know how to break a lapel, or they know what to do when somebody does an underhook, or they know how to attack a leg. It's like I think that all this is super important, man. And again, like I don't know. I think that it's just a much better approach. There's what is that guy's name? There's a guy. I'd like to get him on the podcast. I believe his first name is Ron, but he's had like 1,000
Wow.
matches in grappling, and it was wrestling, sambo, judo, jujitsu, like all these different things, and he like he was able to apply and won various titles at different things, and I think that it's just a really cool thing, and I honestly and we could also like you could go down the rabbit hole about which one is better in self-defense, right? It's like well-rounded is going to be the best, honestly, because again, like you get a judo player and somebody attacks him in a bar and the guy's wearing a sleeveless shirt or whatever. It's like, what if that sleeveless shirt guy grabs a leg and takes you down? It's like, okay, that kind of sucks, right? Or a jiu-jitsu guy is in a bar and the same situation, a sleeveless shirt guy grabs him by the leg and throws him into a table. It's like, they haven't like practiced how to defend getting taken down and
Yes.
stuff. You know, it's just, or you got a wrestler in the bar, and you're both wearing winter coats, and this guy grabs your coat, and it's like you don't know what you don't know what to do as well because you aren't actively practicing these sort of scenarios, right? So it's like I truly feel that this well-rounded approach is going to be better, and I would like to eventually get my jiu-jitsu black belt as well. I've been doing jiu-jitsu a little bit more often now. Um, but the thing is, like, I'm practicing ground techniques every class at my dojo. The last 15, 20, 30 minutes is all groundwork, and that's helping me with my
Yeah.
jiu-jitsu, and it's preparing my guys and girls that if they face a jiu-jitsu person, they aren't going to be just absolutely crushed if this jiu-jitsu person has 3 or 4 months of practice. It's like they're going to be able to somewhat hang with them and know kind of these situations and be in guard and be in this technique and feeling what it's like if somebody is trying to slip an arm for an arm bar. And I just really feel like that needs to be the way to go, honestly.
I agree, man. And somebody, and I hear this multiple times in comments and conversations. What, like, again, focus on the jitsu. Like, jiu-jitsu is the catch-all of grappling, or so it seems right now. You have gi, you have no gi, you have competitive environments for both. And unlike wrestling and judo, you have a growing number of people coming from judo. And again, the people that are coming to jiu-jitsu is far greater than people leaving jiu-jitsu for other martial arts, right? Again, it goes without saying, right? Like with the modern jiu-jitsu issues of, people talking about criminal offenses and things involving minors and women and so on and so forth. Like, that's horrible, which reflects the dough of judo, where it's like, hey, I mean, there's obviously some general things, right? The safe sport stuff, the background checks, the whatever, that protect you at like a face value level, not to mention the culture behind it, which keeps judo in check. Even in wrestling, if you're going to be a USA wrestling coach or whatever level, even in the school system, right? Like, you got background checks, you have certifications and so on and so forth that kind of protects you, one, from a legal and insurance perspective, but two, like, hey, as a parent, I want to know I can trust my kid in this room with this stranger that realistically I don't really know. So that's important. But there's that part, right? But going back to the jiu-jitsu, the art, Brazilian jiu-jitsu is by far the most accepting means of implementing new technique. There, a jiu-jitsu guy's like, oh wow, you got a wrestling background? Yeah, man, like explain your collar tie. Like, what's a collar tie? And a wrestling guy's like, what
Yeah.
do you mean what's a collar tie? What do you mean what's hand fighting? Like, that's day one stuff. What are we talking about, right? But the jiu-jitsu guy may not know that.
Right.
And they
Yeah.
totally embrace
Nope.
all of that, and they want to learn. And then, they're more willing to be like, oh, okay, well, now that I learned it, oh, okay, here's the hole in the game. And now I can like beat people that know this thing. And like, they're willing to play with the art that is grappling more so. So it's kind of the catch-all. But, it's interesting kind of
Yeah.
feed into what we were talking about, what makes a black belt, right? Well, it's like, well, the deeper I kind of meditate on this thing of what is a black belt and all this stuff, it's like, I mean, I settle more and more on this thing of like, man, a black belt is just like a check on knowledge for that respective art. If we're being honest, right? Like, even in BJJ, which is a catch-all, you never master this thing. You can do it for 100 years and still not master it, because there's always somebody, whether it's strength, whether it's technique, whatever it is, somebody can beat you. It's just the nature of it. Everyone eats their humble pie eventually, and I mean, even the Teddy Rinners of the world that are 300 pounds and well over 6 foot or whatever. It's like, hey, like he started dominating once leg grabs were removed, right? So it's like, I mean, we're just calling it what it is, right? And that's not knocking him or taking anything from him. He eat my lunch any day of the week. He's also a 300 plus pound man. I lose, okay? But regardless,
He's
exactly,
a giant, man.
or going back to Andre the Giant from pro wrestling, like, go fight him. Good luck. Like, it's not going to end well, right? And that's pro wrestling. That's not even, I mean, he was a legit wrestler, but you know what I mean? Like, this idea, this thing of like, oh, I have a BJJ black belt, therefore I'm superior to everything, or even a judo black belt. Like, well, I can throw you because I'm a judo black belt. Maybe, kid. Maybe. The mat never lies, but like, that's not the point, right? But anyways, the black belt thing from the fighting perspective is really, in my opinion, more and more now like, that black belt is a litmus test for X amount of techniques and a specific style, right? Because, we had the argument of like a judo black belt is a really great throwing takedown artist, but doesn't necessarily understand all the newas of BJJ. And same thing with BJJ, right? Like, not saying they don't have any takedown game, because you see time and time again, BJJ black belts that want to come play judo and actually do pretty well, right? Immediately, they're definitely not novice. They're at least intermediate right out the gate, if they're a good jiu-jitsu black belt. And, and again, that's because they've refined one or two techniques, depending on the rule set, right? Like, if they decided to refine a couple of, judo style turn throws, like an uchimata, even if it's an ugly uchimata, opponent still opponent, right? Like, if they get it, they get it. Or if they have a good Tani Azoshi or a good Yoko Azoshi, right? Again, sure, you might consider Tsutemiwaza sacrifice techniques as a higher level black belt thing in some people's opinions, not mine, but neither here nor there, because everyone's like, well, that they shouldn't know that throw. That's for like a Sandan in judo, a third degree. And I'm like, okay, well, what if this guy who's a novice in judo, that's the first technique he learns, he's been using it in 100 matches in BJJ, comes to your, local tournament and crushes everybody. I'm not talking USA Judo Nationals, right? I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about more local stuff. And he's crushing the game. Like, you can boohoo all you want to, but guess what? He just sacrificed technique to your dude, Tomanagi, Yoko Wakari, whatever, right? And won. So maybe for your competitors, instead of complaining about the fact that this guy knows it, you teach them how to deal with that problem set, right? So that's one thing. But again, that jiu-jitsu black belt doesn't need to know 67 Kodokan judo throws. They know one or two, refine them pretty well. They give them a competitive edge if necessary. Not to mention they have a whole other skill set, right? So, I keep thinking of like, oh, well, what if I, made a curriculum that was wholly encompassing and made you really good at all things? That's not realistic, right? Because again, now we get into like the stages of black belt, right? Like, going back to the Japanese, the Kodokan's mentality. Again, you can, by curriculum, get a judo black belt within 12 months. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying everyone can do it. I'm not knocking the program. I'm simply saying that you can be a day zero nobody, go to the Kodokan and potentially do that in 12 months. It's really, I've heard more realistically people do it in 24 to 36 months, so 3 years, which isn't that crazy when you think about it. But again, the test is, do you demonstrate good judo during randori? It's not if you win, it's do you demonstrate good judo from their viewpoint? 2, the first 9 in the 15 Naginakata set, again, just demonstrating good judo in a standard format. And then maybe they have a few other sidebar things, but that's really it. It's the randori or they have like an organized shiai. It's not like a true open shiai, but a shiai format, and the kata. And the rest of that time you're spending, studying stuff and then doing some randori and, hey, do you show good judo? And then the panel says, yep, you're good enough for a shodan. That's it, right? Like that doesn't mean you're a master by any means. It just means you understand the principles. And we have a very high standard. Even I do, compared to that, have a pretty high standard for what a shodan should be over here. And that's not, making us better or worse. It's neither here nor there. But it's like, okay, well, what's the next step, right? Because if I've done all 67 throws for shodan, or even, like with the USJA, it's the 40 throws, right? The Gokyo no Waza. If I do the core 40 throws of judo or shodan, plus, all 29 grappling techniques, right, of judo, it's like, okay, well then what does continuation look like? Because, for Nidon, there's another set of techniques, and then for Sandan, there's not, and then you're done like formally testing per se. Because you've already demonstrated everything. And it's only like 10 more techniques for Nidon and 8 more techniques for Sandan. I forget the official set of techniques it's called. One's like the old techniques or preserved techniques, and the other one's like new techniques or whatever. But neither here nor there. It's like, okay, well, like that's just demonstrating techniques. What about progression and understanding? So like with the USJA, as you know, the 4th and 5th degree black belt is the Koro belt. And that just means you're a teacher. Kind of the expectation is at that point to progress, you should be teaching. It's not that you necessarily own a dojo, but maybe you're an assistant somewhere or whatever. Like you're starting to give back and give that education back, teaching the do of judo, teaching the techniques of judo, and furthermore, you're refining your skill set. Because as you know, teaching is a wonderful way to get better at the understanding of a thing. Because if you're like, yeah, this is Taitoshi, and they're like, how'd you do that? And they're like, oh, well, you do it like this. And then they have deer in the headlights. Maybe you need to learn how to teach them. You know what I mean? Like, how do I teach this technique? Do I actually understand it well enough that I can teach it back, right? Like, that's a thing. So, that progressing that black belt, that doesn't necessarily mean you're an Olympian. It's okay. I have basically belts 1 through 3 is increasing technical proficiency. Obviously, the natural byproduct of that is an ability to throw somebody under resistance to an extent. But Sensei's independent value of like how much, right? Are we talking, hey, you and other black belts are going toe to toe at USA Judo Nationals? Maybe. Some people have that standard. Some people, it's like, hey, you're doing some randori in the club, and like, you feel good, and like, I can see that you're trying to do good judo. That's good enough for me, right? I'm somewhere in between the two, but like, that's a thing, right? So it's, and maybe I lean too much on the randori, but I got to ego check myself sometimes, right? I'm like, oh man, that guy's Sumigeishi sucked. And I'm like, man, he had a great Ippon Seiragi. Do I really care about the Sumi if he's got 4 other fantastic techniques that he wins with? Like, what am I doing, right? I got to check myself. But yeah, to go a bit to progress through those other ranks, Ben and I had an interesting conversation where it's like, it's interesting how, and I could be wrong, I'm sure somebody will check me, but it seems like by the time someone hits 6th, because again, the USJ is unique where we have in the HJ where we have the red and black coral belts for 4th and 5th degree teachers, right? Which I think is cool, and it's definitely an American thing of like encouraging people to continue and distinguishing or whatever. But everyone else just has the 1 through 5 black belts, which is fine. That's cool, whatever. But it's funny when that white and red coral belt goes out for 6th degree, it seems to be, especially for your Olympic guys, it seems to be a sign of retirement where it's like, hey, you've been on the Olympic team, you've at the highest levels, you're a hometown hero, you've gotten a salary for it, whatever. In America, we don't get that, but for other countries, which that's a whole other conversation. But it's like, here's this candy cane belt. Congratulations, you've made it. Now go do something else. Give back, right? And then a lot of people just kind of stop. They're kind of like, oh, well, all I know is competition. I don't really know what to do now. And it's like, well, you lost the do of judo. That you've lost the point, right? It's like you won all the medals in the world, but like you forgot what judo is. So now we're going to force you to grow, which means you need to coach or do seminars, or maybe you help with the organization, because that's legit too. Like, oh, and I'm going to help put on tournaments and seminars, or review rule sets and policies, and be on a cabinet board or whatever, right? Like that's a thing, right? But at some point, it's like, when do I stop being the person on the mat in the sense of being, the man of the arena, right? Being the guy that's doing the fighting, and now I'm raising the next generation. And some people start that sooner, some people start that later, and that's fine, right? Especially if you have the aggression and the physical, like me, man, I'm beat up inside and out. I don't look like it, but I got a medical record that's thousands of pages long, right? Thank you, military. But like outside of that, it's like, okay, so I start teaching sooner as I just have to, a victim of my circumstance, right? And for better or for worse. And there's some guys that, are really after it and are in great shape and can just, are going to go until they're 40 or 50 or 60. I don't know. They're going to fight in master's divisions. That's cool. Go do that. But at one point, when are you going to give back? Because if you're 80 years old, you're no longer competing. You've done it all, right? And hopefully you live from 80 to 180, right? But it's like, how viable are you to really begin teaching, especially in a resisting format at that age? If you've had all this skill for all this time that you've used and never written a book even to give that knowledge back to the community, like you missed it, man. Like you didn't raise another generation. Congratulations, you're going to go down as a judo hero of competing. But your technical knowledge dies with you. So give it to somebody else. It's like with business, right? Right now in America, we're like 500,000. We're going to be like 500,000 short on program managers within the next 5 years. And then also blue collar workers, plumbers, electricians, so on and so forth. And again, this goes back to my job, right? I have to do the market research and understand the market so we can see what contractors we can get to work on defense contracts. That just is what it is. But it's like, oh crap, wait, we don't have program managers. Oh no, government, what can we do to get program managers? Because if we don't have middle management in some way, shape, or form, it's going to mess up a lot of major contracts. So what can we do to kind of put some gusto on the economy and so on and so forth? But someone's got to give that back, right? If you got guys retiring at 60, nobody wants to take their business, no one wants to learn from them, no one wants to be an apprentice, journeyman, whatever. Well, that skill set dies. And I kind of like running water, I kind of like electricity. I kind of want people to know how to do it, and I can learn so much on my own, but I don't have a master teaching me. So again, the giving back, the continuing this thing that is judo, like kind of going all the way back to square one, man. We need that. And I wish more, as you said, there's only you counted 31 judo dojos in North Carolina, and like a lot of those are closed or no longer opening, or there's a lot of senior judoka that just aren't really teaching anymore, or and then how many black belts are in the state, and out of those black belts, who teaches, and out of those, who teaches at a competitive level, right? It's so small. So it's like, hey, like we're not asking you to teach the Olympics. We're saying teach the art, spread the art, give back, and like just not enough people are doing it. It is what it is.
Yeah, there's so many tangents I could go off on all that stuff that you said. And I know originally, right, we were going to talk about, what is a black belt, what makes a black belt, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, but, the conversation went a completely different way. But I'm going to end with this because we're at an hour, and we got to wrap it up here. But so I wanted to end with this particular, and we've touched on it a lot, and a lot of people that I've talked to have also brought it up, right? Is so when we go back and we think about one of the core tenets of judo, right? Mutual welfare and benefits. So yes, that is talking about keeping your partner safe and throwing them in a way to where they don't get hurt, and the physical side. But it translates more to the mental side of things, okay? And you touched on it earlier, and we talked on the phone about it in the last couple days. So both of us, and also other people too, right? Like I stay in contact with a couple different Olympians or national champions, and I've brought up the haters, and they're like, oh, I get hated on all the time. People leave comments all the time. Coral belts leave comments all the time that my judo is crap, and I'm sitting there, and I have this Olympic medal or national medal, and I'm like, well, I have this, but so it's like the mutual welfare and benefit. We need to, as judoka, we need to start building each other up, man. because that is a core tenet of Jigoro Kano, right? We have to build each other up. The mutual welfare and benefit needs to be applied to, what sort of a comment we're making to somebody, and we're in a digital realm now, and we've lost kind of that face to face kind of I don't know what you would call it, but there's a lot of bravery in the
Yeah.
internet, right? To where like people are going to say, just the craziest stuff and just hurtful stuff and things that they've never met, like people that they've never met. And, what's going to happen, right? Am I going to get in my car and drive to whatever, Washington State and confront a coral belt that said that my technique was crap? No. So like, you get this like overwhelming sometimes environment of negativity that comes from like higher level older judoka, and it's like those people out of anybody should want to preserve judo and should want to grow judo and should want to support these younger people that are wanting to teach judo like you and I, and like what, but like the ripping down of individuals is just going to just kill judo, and it's like it has to turn around, right? We have to go back to that mutual welfare and benefit. And literally, like if somebody's listened to this and they've made it this far, obviously thank you for listening. But if you are a troll, if you are, I was listening to an interview with Terry Brands actually earlier, right? And Iowa gets a lot of hate, right? He called them jackasses of the internet, right? That just go in there and just tear everybody down, right? Like you literally are going against the core tenet that was presented by Jigoro Kano of mutual welfare and
Yes.
benefit. If you go on and rip people, you know, you are going against Jigoro Kano, so shame on you, And, it don't matter if you've been doing judo 60 years, right? Like, you need to start encouraging people to teach
Yes.
judo, right? You need to, instead of ripping on somebody, how about sending them a private message saying, and I've done this to people, right? To where, they did a technique and I sent them a message saying, first of all, great technique. Thank you for getting out there and putting yourself out there. If I can give one little tip on your technique, you might want to turn your foot this way a little bit, but continue what you're doing. I hope this helps. I'm not trying to rip you. All I'm doing is trying to help you, right? Like those are ways that we're going to grow judo, right? And when you get nothing but trolls that are just and we had a conversation last night about you feeling discouraged
Hmm.
about that, because you get hate and so do I, and it's just like it makes people say, should I just hang it up, like, because negative comments always stand out so much more than the positive ones, right? And I had to battle with this as a wrestling coach. It's like I got way more good comments than bad, but man, when you put your heart into it, and then you get this stupid kid or this ignorant parent or this non-supportive administrator that just says something to you, and you just think to yourself, well, look at all the work that
Yeah.
I've done, and this is all selfless work that I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing it for these kids, right? So it's like it's hard to not take that stuff personal. But I don't know. As of lately, man, maybe I've gotten numb to it after I've left education, and I really don't care about these idiots that are making these stupid comments. Like I told you about, I made that belt tying video.
That's
Like,
crazy, man.
and what was the whole premise of this video? I had one of my students go to Japan, go train at the Kodokan, and as a beautiful token of respect, he bought a Kodokan black belt and gave it to me. I mean, like, what an absolute honor, you know? So, okay, because, I don't want to. So let's just put it this way. It, the way that I have to tie that belt is a little different because it is a little
Understood.
smaller.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I love the belt and I'm glad that I'm tying it this way. But if I were to tie it with the traditional ceremonial knot that I normally do, you would have this much of the belt sticking out on each side. So you wouldn't be able to see the beautiful gold writing on there. So I have to tie it a little different. But people want to just rip on me that I am just not tying it the traditional
Yeah.
way, and like I forgot to loop it underneath the second the layer behind. I didn't loop it behind both layers of the belt, so I'm a freaking moron. But the whole point of the video was thank you, Travis, for buying me this belt. I am this is a homage to you, thank you for this, and I'm going to tie it in honor to you. So, but but it is what it is. But I'm going to end with that. We get into these awesome conversations, and I appreciate it. And I am working on that list that I am going to send you, and I want it to be spread, right? Because I would like to have a real up to date 2026 comprehensive list of available judo schools or facilities that offer judo, right? Like if it's a Brazilian Jiu Jitsu facility that has a judo class and it's actually a judo class, that there is a comprehensive list, right? And I'm going to send it to a whole bunch of different entities, including, there is, for anybody that's listening, there is a list online, and I think it's literally titled like the North Carolina Judo Club list. If you type that in Google, it'll be the first thing that pops up. But the list is not up to date. It's just not. So I want to figure that out, send it to them, but then also provide it to other entities that want to present, hey, if you're looking to do judo and you live in Sanford, North Carolina, here's a place, and here's a couple places that are close to you, right? You live in Asheville, here's a place in Asheville, here's a couple places that are near you, right? And it's like it has to be up to date because whenever, and I'm still like, I actually got one back the other day, which is wild, but I sent out flyers because I was doing a camp
Okay.
a couple months ago, and I used like that list online to send flyers to promote the event, and I got a whole bunch of them kick back to me, like saying like this is not a real address, or this business does not exist anymore, right? So it's like we need to get that comprehensive, and we need to get that up to date to where and again, this falls back into why is judo lacking, because they aren't staying up with
Yeah.
technology, right? So it's like just as simple as finding a judo club on Google sometimes is hard to do, right? It's like there's no page, or maybe I come up, like I find these odd like pings that come up on Google, and it's like whatever, it's like a like whatever, like a Reddit article from like 2015, and it's like this is a judo club, and it's like okay, cool, like I've never heard about this judo club, so I search it, and like literally like nothing
Yeah.
comes up at all about it. So it's like, is this still a judo club? Is it not a judo club? Was this made up? Like, what if I live in Greenville and I want to go train judo, right? Like, can I go to this place? I don't know. So it's like, that's what I'm saying. Like, I want to get a comprehensive list. I want to send it off as a gift to whoever runs that page. And, yeah, it'll be a little work for them to update it, but I want to give them a comprehensive list, right? Of all the judo clubs, right? And this is a start, and then I'd also like to do one for South Carolina too. But I'm gonna get this list together. I'm editing the video right now, um, and I want this to be pumped up, or not pumped up, but I want this to be sent to like all the correct entities, senseis, organizations, whatever, so that we can get this list actually made and created. And then if there are mistakes on there, I want people to reach back to me about them and say, hey, this is a judo club. It still exists. You might have spelled it wrong. Here's the correct
Yeah.
spelling. Here's the address. This is the sensei, or for sure that judo club is closed. Right. So I don't know if it's going to be opened anymore, but you have it on this list, and let's cross that out. It's no longer open. Right. So it's like, I just want to get this list made, but I'm going to send that to you. And then, like I said, like I want to send it to as many resources as I can within the state, right? And then we'll finally get a good comprehensive list of all the judo clubs, right? Because I also do, and because we've done it together, I do the teaching
Yeah.
exchange, right? You've been to my club. You've taught at my club. Well, at 4M anyway. I've been to your club multiple times and taught. I've done this with Saga. I've done this with Champions. I've done this with who else have I done this with? I've done it with Bulldog Jiu Jitsu in South Carolina. I've done
You were up
this.
near me at Workhorse Jiu Jitsu too, not that long ago, I think. At Workhorse Jiu Jitsu, yeah.
Yeah, but that wasn't a teaching exchange. That was just me doing a clinic. But
You're everywhere,
they do
man.
have a judo program now. Right. They do have a judo program now, by the way, which I want to go up there and
Yeah,
check
that's
that
Chris
out.
Frost. He used to. I can
But
connect
anyway,
you guys. He's awesome. He's good people.
okay. Okay. Well, I think that's it. That's what I'm going to end with. You want to throw anything out there before we wrap it up? And obviously, thanks for coming on. I love the conversations. I love being able to talk judo. And, again, like I could go on about this forever, but I want to like connect with all the judo black belts in the state. Like I want to have more people on the round tables. I want to have um, events, and like if there's a small judo club in wherever, in I don't know, whatever town, Nag's
Yeah.
Head or something, like they're having an event and they're having a clinic. Like I want to maybe create a list of emails to where because like the coaches of North Carolina, the wrestling coaches, right? Like halfway through my first year, they're like, "Are you part of the North Carolina wrestling coaches email thread?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not." And they're like, "Well, here it is. This is all the wrestling coaches in the whole
Yeah.
state. Let's get you on it." So I want to get that with judo as well. I would eventually like to figure out how many black belts there are in North Carolina, but I think that will be literally impossible to do. There's always going to be a
I
deviation,
have some
right? There's always
thoughts. We
going to
can talk
be,
offline about that. Because I want to support you however I
but
can.
anyway,
Yeah, I have my ideas too. But yeah, we can talk later about that.
yeah, yeah. But anyways, that's I be on the lookout for that, everybody. If you are a judo sensei, or if you're not even a sensei, if you go to a club and you're listening to this, check out that the YouTube video, and help me create a comprehensive list, and then there'll be an active archive of places that people can go to, and then also there'll be a comprehensive email list with all the senseis in the state, to where we can start connecting. Like I plan on again like hosting that big event, and this is like not for me, dude. This is not for me. This is like I want to create a cohesive connection network. between all the judo senseis in the state. There's a few that I talk to, including you, Vernon, Ken, Joey T, Joe
Yeah.
Wells. I talk with them regularly, right? And they host events, I go to it. I host events, they come to it, right? We need to be more comprehensive, man. And if there's a judo club that's popping up somewhere, we need to know about it, and then because sometimes I'll get, either somebody calling me or emailing me or just whatever, and they're like, I live in Cornelius and I saw that you have a judo club, and man, I'd like to come, but it's an hour away. I'm like, there's a judo club in
Yeah.
Cornelius. So why don't you go there? So it's they're like, oh, there is? I didn't know that. And again, it goes back to this marketing issue with
Yes.
judo, dude. There's a judo. Ken does a good job. So I'm not picking on Ken. Ken's great. Champions
Yeah.
Judo. He has a good website and stuff. I'm not. So Ken, I'm not talking smack. I promise. That was just like an example. Nobody in Cornelius really contacted me, but I'm just saying, or somebody in Lincolnton's like, oh, I'd love to come to your club. It's 2 hours away. Okay, have you heard of Saga? They're like, no, there's a club in Lincolnton? Yes. So anyways, it all goes back to that, and I'm starting to get worked up here, so sorry. But anyway, I'm going to cut myself off. So, Austin, anything that you want to close with, and I'm done.
You could.
I'm done.
Just as always, it is truly an honor. It's an honor to be your friend. I love you, man. Thank you for having me on the podcast. I love talking to you about these things. I know we're both very, very passionate about this conversation with we're both kind of entrepreneurial spirits in this. Right. And of course, if anybody wants to learn more about me or what I'm about, my website is sdjjudo.com, sdjjudo.com. I'm affiliated with both the USA Judo and the United States Judo Association and the ATJA, so I cross all the main three bodies on the East Coast. If you're not big on websites and you want to check me out on social media, unfortunately, it's a long name, Seijuku Dan Judo. Seijuku is Seijuku. If you just type that word in, you're probably going to find me. I know of nobody else that uses that word. Seijuku, Seijuku, Dan, Dan, Judo. Everyone's trying to spell Judo, Judo, right? But I'm on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube. Mm-hmm. Feel free to message me anytime. And again, Cole, hey, thanks, man. I love talking to you, dude. I really do.
Or if you guys just want to come on and just hate on me and Austin, that's fine too.
Totally, let's do it. Don't just be in my comments saying, "Oh my gosh, your throw's bad." Hey, talk to me or come visit the gym. The tatami never lies, man. So if you have a question about something, I frequently, I like to visit other gyms. I'm willing to come out for free as long as it's not an egregious trip. I'm actually doing a seminar in June. I'm at Spartan Judo Club on the East Coast in Virginia. So it is free for USJA members.
Yeah, I want to get her on the podcast. By
Karina's
the way,
awesome,
too.
and she has a PhD. She's great people. You can have good talks for her.
Awesome. Yeah, I want to reach out to her next. But yeah, awesome, man. I'm a half hour past what I was wanting to do. So we gotta cut it off. But
Absolutely,
thank you.
Homie. Thanks again.
I really appreciate it, Austin. I'll be in touch, okay? And keep it up, man. Keep doing what you're doing. Let's grow together,
Absolutely.
Okay?
Keep taking lead, homie. You're doing a great job.
All right. Thanks. See you later, Austin. Bye-bye.